Shepherd. Welcome to a new video segment that we are going to be doing on Wednesdays called Refresh. And some weeks we're going to be looking back at last week's sermon, giving you a refresher on what we talked about. Some weeks we're going to refresh you through a spiritual practice. We'll be teaching you some different ways that you can connect with God anytime on your own. So we hope you'll tune in on Wednesdays for this. This week, we're going to be talking about the sermon that Pastor Alex preached for Reformation. And Alex, one of the things I loved that you did in your sermon was, we always talk about Reformation being Protestants. You know, Martin Luther was a protester, and you flipped that around in a way that was really helpful for me. And said, you know, we talk a lot about what we're against, and you said, what if instead of thinking protester that way, we thought of pro? What are we for? What do we stand for? What are we advocating with our own lives? And of course, we're pro-Jesus. We're for Jesus. Mm-hmm. And you talked a little bit in your sermon about what that might look like. And so why don't you give us a little review?
Yeah, I think when I was thinking about that, that was precisely where I was going, was because I think we hear enough about what people are in opposition of. Cultural criticism is rampant. So how do we advocate for the things we love? Because I think we tell a better story about what we love than what we're against. So with Jesus being the center of it, I think we think of those characteristics of Jesus that ensnared us to want to be disciples. So I think of how Jesus welcomes strangers. I think of how Jesus challenges me and the people around him to see strangers as brothers and sisters. When you welcome and practice hospitality, you entertain angels. You know, this beautiful idea that there's these opportunities around you to be an instrument of peace and love. So I think of his mercy. I think of his understanding. Sure, he could protest a bit, but really, I just felt like he was about bringing more people to the table. So how do we become more pro-hospitality, love, grace, mercy, peace? And I think that would be a beautiful, if that's what people said about a church, they are pro-peace, love, reconciliation, restoration. I'd be like, yes, we're doing it. We're the church.
So in the sermon, you told a really powerful story of something that happened at Trunk or Treat about a woman who came, and she was so inspired by the generosity and the hospitality that she received at Good Shepherd that it changed her behavior. She acted in response to what she received here. And really, that's what we hope happens to all of us. We come to worship, we encounter God's word, we want to be transformed by that so that our behavior does change. So for me, as I've been reflecting on your sermon this week, what am I pro? What do I stand for? When people look at my life, they say, hey, she really, this is what she's about. And one of the things that I guess I'm struggling with and have struggled with for a long time is I want to be more pro-trusting in God. Right? Yeah. So I spend a lot of time reacting to things. Something happens and I react, and sometimes my reacting self isn't my best self. It isn't my most Jesus-like self. So I think your sermon, reminded me that sometimes rather than just reacting to something that's happening, I need to take a breath. I need to say a prayer. I need to remember whatever this is that's happening, God is in the midst of it. And probably nothing really disastrous is really going to happen. And so I'd like people to look at me and say, she's really pro-trust, pro-peace.
Yeah, I think for me it's pro-peace. Because I want to be at peace. And by that I also mean, like, I want to have a peaceful, I don't want conflict between me and neighbor. Me and strangers. The amount of things that I could get frustrated with my neighbor, I mean, it seems like it's constant. We're hearing about things that should frustrate us, scare us, anger us, outrage us. And I think that affects then how I see my neighbor. And I know Jesus has called me to love my neighbor. So how do I become more pro-loving, pro-person of peace? So for me, it's the practice of when I'm frustrated with someone, how am I pausing and saying, I'm not against this person. I don't need to have a posture of opposition. I can be pro this person. Maybe I can better understand what's frustrating me to better understand them and recognize that they aren't trying to rile me up, but I am being frustrated or irritable or whatever. I want to be a peacemaker, so I want to be pro peace, which for me will mean more practice of, again, pausing and hearing and seeing my neighbor as a beautiful reflection of God, as worthy of love, worthy of respect. And I want that for myself, so how am I going to do that for others? That's how I would try to, that's my pro piece this week, probably.
All right, Good Shepherd. What are you hoping for from this week's sermon? What do you want to be pro? What do you want to be for? When people look at your life, what do you want them to see? Where are you feeling the rub this week? And take it on as a challenge for how are you going to live into that in your life of what you're for, what you're pro. Hey, thanks for watching, and we will see you again next Wednesday. God bless.